are you doing, Paula?
Good, good. Liam is calling us from Washington, D.C. And, Liam is a stand for equal justice under the law. And he's actually going to be joining the Hitting Stops here on our America Speaks blog talk radio show. And it's going to be early next week. And he's actually going to be joining the Hitting Stops here on our America Speaks blog talk radio show. And it's going to be early next week. So check our website message board. The name of the show is USA School Beatings and the Bling Bling Culture. But tonight, Liam, tell us about the U.S. Supreme Court and its response to the 14th Amendment of American school children who are still being beaten in USA schools.
Well, actually, the response is a non-response. They're not responding at all. And there's a few reasons for this. First of all, when it comes to the federal government dealing with issues, especially in schools, they're loath to step into it because of this doctrine of states' rights and sovereign immunity. So in order for the federal government to take a stand and politically get behind the court, acknowledging the 14th Amendment, the equal protection law for these school children, it's going to take them to battle directly with the states' rights issue, which they're very loath to do. So for them, it's not a question of the children. It's a question of what they want to accomplish politically and whether or not they are going to get into the fray and get all bloodied up over states' rights in order to address the issue. So when you talk about 1% of the cases in total being heard, and none of them related to children beatings, basically what you're looking at is the manifestation and fallout of the federal government having due deference for states' rights and sovereign immunity. And there is actually no states' rights, and sovereign immunity is not really a doctrine that should be controlling here in America. Now, that's the philosophy and the law. Just from a point of view of a human being and God-given rights, I think it's just absolutely absurd and offensive for anybody to think that beating a child with a wooden paddle is somehow helpful to that child. It's not helpful in any way. The environment and culture that you create doesn't just affect those children that get beaten, it affects the whole school. The fact that you don't stand up and speak out when you know something wrong is going on. Humbleness before God is great, but humiliation is just another form of slavery. So it affects all the kids, those that are being beaten and those that aren't being beaten. It lowers their self-esteem. It affects their hope, their faith. And basically, in order for something to be done, it's going to take the federal government, and they're going to have to get over their problem with states' rights and sovereign immunity, because the court will not act until politically the political will is there from the federal government.
Liam, tell us about sovereign immunity and states' rights and how they apply to USA school beatings.
States' rights doesn't exist. Sovereign immunity is an inappropriate doctrine, and this has been used as an iron rod to beat down people out of their God-given rights for 250 years, and it's about time somebody squarely addressed this issue, put it to rest, and then the federal government, when the states are abusing individuals' rights, would not have this argument that they don't want to fight placed as a roadblock for them stepping in and doing the right thing when the states fail to. Look, this is how it works. The people have rights. The people have powers. We suffer government to secure our rights, our God-given rights that are self-evident and inalienable. The Supreme Court is supposed to interpret the powers of government, not people's rights. Those are the things we secure. So when the state fails to uphold our rights and starts to overexert power, to extend its power past its limits, it's time for the federal government to step in, just as when the states can be used to stop the federal government when it's encroaching on the people's rights. But at the end of the day, state or federal government, they have powers, and those powers are limited. When they abuse those powers, the people must put them in check. That's what the court is for. That's what the executive and the Congress are supposed to be cognizant of. And so when you deal with this issue, the reason why it's not moving forward is because the states are claiming that they have the power to regulate schools, and the federal government shouldn't weigh in because they have states' rights and sovereign immunity. But how it's supposed to work is, yes, the states have authority over the schools, but when you abuse people's rights with any of your powers, It's time for somebody to step in. It's time for the good cop on the beat to step in and put that in check. And that's sadly why the Supreme Court is not upholding the 14th Amendment, the equal protection law for the kids. Now, let's take a step back and think about, your visit to the Supreme Court, which I was there to observe, and the fact that you couldn't walk into that court with a paddle. So the Supreme Court justices who say it's okay and will not weigh in on this issue because of states' rights and sovereign immunity and the lack of political will by the federal government, they will not suffer being in the presence of that because they consider it a deadly weapon. And yet not only do they allow it to be present in a school and amongst children who don't have the Capitol Police to protect them, but they let the teachers use it on them. Now let's think about what happens. What's the result? What's the real result when you allow that stick to be used to beat children in a school? Well, there's teachers that don't believe in it, and there's teachers that do believe in it. The teachers that don't believe in it make the people that do believe in it very uncomfortable. So over time, something's got to give. And so you have schools where the people that don't believe in it are marginalized, and it becomes a magnet. It goes on a downward arc so that it becomes a magnet for those who support the abuse, and soon you've got a haven for abusers. And it's just a downward spiral. So we really do need the federal government to step in on this issue. We need them to sweep us aside. If the states decide to invoke states' rights and sovereign immunity, then it's a great opportunity to pull out the Constitution, revisit it, and say, look, the 10th Amendment and the 9th Amendment make it perfectly clear states don't have rights, and the doctrine of sovereign immunity has no business in American canon of law, and that it's time for the federal government to step in to protect the God-given rights of those children. So I really don't want to ground it in an amendment so much as I want to ground it in the simple, self-evident and common sense notion that nobody should be beaten and that it is no help to somebody to beat them. That isn't discipline, it's abuse. And just as I would say that every sovereignty is a sovereign excess, it's a sovereign abuse, except nation-state sovereignty, the one sovereignty we're not acknowledging today. So I would say that this kind of thing is never discipline, it's never helpful in any context, it's always abusive, and it has to stop.
Thank you so much, Liam. And I want our viewers and our listeners out there to know that when we have our radio show, people will have opportunity to call in and present questions to Liam. You could tell he's an expert. And Liam, any other closing words? I want to thank you again, and you close out here for us.
Well, I just want to say that, we believe in speaking up and standing up for those who can't speak for themselves and can't stand up for themselves. At the heart, that's what America is. America is about people standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And so I think leaving our children to be abused, it isn't just a question of all the ill effects that come out of that, the low self-esteem, the culture, the setting the children up to fail at a very young age, with the economy, the drugs, the culture, and all that stuff we can maybe get into at another time when we have more time. It's the fact that we're leaving these children in the hands of people. Anybody that would think that it's okay to take that wooden paddle and beat a kid with it and that it's somehow helpful to them is not the kind of person you want in authority. And so we are allowing those children to go to school and suffer the indignity of believing that they are impotent and powerless in the face of authority, abusive authority, not proper authority, abusive authority. So if we don't stand up and speak out, I don't think we're truly embracing who we are as Americans. And that's why I think it's an important issue. I think the work you're doing is great, and it's really important to get that message out there.
Liam, I'm going to go ahead and take our next caller. And again, I want to thank you so much for being on this show with us all the way from Washington, D.C. And you have a good night now.
Always an honor, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.